What up, ladies and gents of YouTube? It took me quite a long time to come back to this topic. A couple of months ago I made a video where I rambled a little bit about the new IPP2 workflow, and this is the time where I get back to it. I said that I would come back when I figured things out and talk a little bit about the IPP2 workflow in DaVinci Resolve. So here we are back again, and I graded a couple of shots, which is basically actually just like these three shots, playing forward and playing backward from here on out. I already graded this project, and I can show you before and after. So this is the shot out of the red in what's it called? Let me have a look. Always forget it. In white gamut RGB and log 310, and this is after. This is just one look I could go for, or I went for. So there's some, let's call it basic stuff. Like, I normally go out there and have, like, for every adjustment I do, there's a different node. I don't know whether everyone does that. It's just my way of dealing in DaVinci. So I have, let's just disable those things all together. Probably not that. So did I do anything here? I guess not, because my white balance is correct in the raw settings. So basically there's nothing on it. So my first node is probably just there for white balance correction and sort of like getting things, let's call it right. Actually, this is not raw. Normally when you import it, I guess it's set to project. I believe if you import a red clip, it's set to project. So what I do in my first node normally is go to clip, which means you interpret the footage, this raw data, by this clip. So just this cut from here to there. Then this would be, because this is a dragon, I guess this would be something like that. And I would go ahead and be like, all right, I don't want that because I don't like grading in the log, in not a flat image profile. If I go into Resolve, I mean, that's the reason why I go into Resolve. You could also change color temperature and tint right here if you have any problems baked into it. I guess also it starts at 5.6K as the default color temperature, but I'm not quite sure. So you would correct that. Let's just say this would be at that, and I know there is fluorescent light all over the place, and my main light was at 4K. So, and a little bit tinted because of the fluorescent light, which you can see over there. And now I would go in and be like, all right, let's get to, where is it? Red white gamut, which is the new color space, and go set my gamma curve. Holy moly, I'm not quite awake yet. Bear with me. Would set my gamma curve to log 310, which means I have a really flat image profile, and I could start my grade from there. So I'm gonna hit Alt S, which would get me a different node. Again, if I were to correct anything more than just the basic correction, I would, let's change the label, basic correction. This is my basic correction node. So this would be my second node, would always be a node where I get my my first 3D LUT in. So this is going to be the 3D LUT which converts my log into a Rec 709 or whichever color space I need this clip to be delivered to. In this case, I'm gonna go to Rec 709, which means I go to the LUTs IPP2. These ones are provided by Red. You can download them at their website. And I would go for this one to, gosh darn it, where you at? I would go to medium contrast and the roll of 2. This is just something you need to find which one of those LUTs you like. I like this for this project, and I guess it's different for every project. There's heck of a lot of LUTs to just to choose from. I chose this. You can choose whatever you want. So this is gonna be my conversion. Conversion's too long. Rec 709 node, which gets me from the flat image to a standard Rec 709 picture. Now that I have my contrast level set, I would go ahead and probably be like, all right, let's get some creative LUTs. Oops. Let's get some creative LUTs going. So I would add a node with combination of Alt and S. Again, a serial node, and change the label to, let's call it creative. Now just look. So now I would go ahead and let's say I do it manually, where I dial in my my look manually. I would have some blues in the shadows and some more orange in the midtones, and would correct that back to normal white, sort of. That's no look, that's just something. Reset all that. That's actually where I would start and use 3D LUTs. A, for the sake of saving you time, because time is money, we all know that. And B, for the sake of, well, basically, LUTs are accurate. They are mathematically the most accurate way to create looks or to replicate looks over and over and over again, to dial in a look for different scenes. I went out and bought a couple of LUTs, and there's utility looks, which are LUT conversion looks, which is basically the same that I did before, but these are third-party looks. And there's LUTs for getting a Rec 709 to a specific look. So, which look do I get? I guess I'm gonna go for a different look. I know my looks pretty well, and I would try this for this project. Let's just say we'll go with this look. This is sort of a vintage look with some green in the highlights and a little bit of blue in the blacks, and still orangey skin tones. I really like it, and it compresses the contrast levels quite a bit. So it cuts off quite a bit of the whites and cuts off quite a bit of the blacks as well. I could show you that here. You can see it compresses on the top level and on the bottom level quite a bit. It gives a little bit more contrast in the bottom level, which you can see right here in the histogram. And it pushes skin tones towards the skin tone line. You can also see that in here. For this particular shot, I would probably not do any more. Just for the sake of, there's not much that I don't like in it, except for the windows being a little bit blown out, but on that day we had to deal with it, and we were actually pretty happy with it. because there's not much information per se out there. And I can't quite get it back again. Let's just go ahead and put the gain down, and you can see there's not much happening in the background. We're just basically just compressing it down without any results, because there's not much information. They're just blown out. Let's just go ahead and delete that node again. So as you can see with the other clips, I also added a little bit of contrast. I guess I'm gonna do that with the next clip as well. And then there is this strange construction, which I will explain just in a bit. So we have our basic correction, we have the Rec 709, and we have the look dialed in. All right, now let's go ahead and be adding another node, because, well, actually for this, I think I like the way it looks. I could go ahead and give the midtones a little bit more punch. Just cut them off and give the midtones a little bit more punch and see how it looks. But it blows away my skin tones right here, and that's not what I like, and I don't want to go ahead and qualify the shit out of it. Let's just reset that. That's actually pretty good, because I get a little bit more information in his pants bag, and it does not mess around with the white walls and his skin tones too much. It's just subtle, just a little bit subtly pushing a bit more life into what's actually important, which is him. I could also go ahead and let's just do this for the sake of this tutorial. Just go ahead and put down a window and a node and make it like this, and a little bit more soft. Shift and H reveals my selection. Go ahead and invert that. And add a little bit of a vignette for this shot, and just go ahead and track it forward. Blah, blah, blah. Track the shit out of it. Actually tracked nothing, but that's alright, because the scene doesn't move too much. It's subtle. Actually it doesn't move at all. It's just handheld. So I would hit Shift H again to get the highlight mode away, and just go ahead and probably darken the surroundings a little bit more, but I would also need to soften it more just to make it subtle. How's that looking? It's a tutorial. I guess this is a little bit too much, but you get the point of it. You could start and go ahead and let's just change the label. Change label, call it light. Change label, call it contrast, whatever. So we have the basic stuff. That's sorted like that. That's the basic stuff. Here's more of something like the creative stuff, where I add a little bit more contrast because I like it, or just lift something a little bit more. I could actually, now that I reshaped the light, I could like push everything a little bit more so that he pops out a little bit more of the frame. It helps the shot. I guess you get what I mean. And now we get to this strange, this strange film grainy stuff. So we add another serial node, and there's the layer mixer. I still have it. Delete node. Link that, because the layer mixer would not be there. I forgot to delete that before. I would add a node and add a layer, which adds my layer mixer back in. I would delete this link. And now we have pretty much nearly the same thing that we had before. However, there's also something that is not there. And this is the film grain. This is practically this is the same as, so let me explain my thought process. Normally when you go ahead and add grain, for example, where's my grain? Where's my grain? There is my grain. I would go ahead and, why can't I put you there? No, this is a track matte. I can't edit because this is a track matte. I added this thing as a matte, so it can't be handled as a film clip. It's something different. So I would go ahead, get to media, and I would browse to my film grain files, and there's all my film grain. I have also a Fuji 16mm, which is a little bit more grittier, and a Kodak 16mm. Let's just go ahead and add the Kodak 16mm. But if I add it like this, it's interpreted as footage. So this would mean I could edit this shit back up there and just go ahead and, that wasn't an inspector or something. Inspector, you see? Just gotta know where shit is. And I would go ahead and just choose overlay, and it would add the grain as a standard to my footage. You can see there's grain on it. Affects a little bit, but that's fine. But that's not the way I like to add grain, because I would have to do another layer, and it's not really the professional way of doing shit. So what I normally do is import that, right click. So I browse to my folder where all my grain is located, and I would add this to media pool as a matte. So this is, you can see if it's a matte, if there's this this little icon down there, which is also with my 35mm grain, now with my 16mm grain. So I do have now a matte added into this. So I would go ahead and right click on that node and add timeline mattes. So now I can change, so I could go from the Fuji 35mm, which is the one I normally use, except I want it to be a little bit more grittier. Let's say I wanted the movie to look a little bit more grittier. So I would add the Kodak matte. I would have to delete this as a matte and would have to delete, bring it in as a direct footage. So normally this would be as a matte, which would not help us in this case. But I want this to be, nope, misclick, sorry. I want this to be interpreted with the footage and to be interpreted by the layer mixer. What you now see is basically the same status as when I just lay the film grain over the clip and just go ahead and change the clip attribute to overlay. It's basically the same thing, but I can have, I think it's way easier to do it like this, and there's way more advantages. For example, so normally my grain is a timed clip. So let's say just this is a 12-second clip, and if I have a 20-second clip, which I want to grade, so what I would normally have to do is get this clip over here and cut it to the length of my clips. And if I only have 12 seconds, or let's say 7 seconds, but I have a 14 to 15 second clip, well, I will have to duplicate my film grain and put it over, and it's a little bit of a hassle. What the advantage of this procedure is, this will automatically loop my matte. So if my matte ends at, let's say, 7 seconds, it will jump automatically to the start of the clip again, which is a really nice feature, and it saves a lot of time. And I have a little bit of more things that I can do. So I can, since this is actually a normal node, or DaVinci interprets this as a normal node, I can do different kinds of stuff, like let's go ahead and, where's the scale? I haven't used DaVinci in a long time, bear with me. Zoom, right, it's here. So you see there's black bars at the top and the bottom because this is real film scan. It will not be in 16:9 aspect ratio, so I will have to zoom out a little bit until there's no black bars anymore, which is around here. So now I fill the frame. And now, just to mix it, because that's the part of the layer mixer, just to mix it with my footage up here, go to composite mode and just select, where is it? Overlay, overlay. And ta-da, my film grain is integrated into this whole mess of nodes. Some film grains will darken or lighten the image a little bit, and I can go ahead and just get to my node and just lighten the image up, because my film grain might have darkened the image a little bit. With this particular film grain, it does not. But let's say I didn't like the harshness of the grain. So the grain would be a little bit too harsh on the image. Sometimes you think that this is the case. It depends on the footage, but I think in this case it's fine. But let's just say you thought that the film grain was a little bit too hard. So we would go ahead and just dial that back, let's say to 40%, and we'd have less grain in the image without affecting it whatsoever. But we'd still have the same film grain, just with a little bit less visibility, which is pretty neat if you ask me. So you could also go ahead and push it up to 200%, but who does that shit? Yeah. So, just a little tip as a workflow tip. What I normally do is, if I have, like, let's say this is all sort of the basic lighting setup, which is one scene, and I want to copy this look over to this scene. I would go ahead and grab my still, and with this still I can basically copy and paste the look that I created here to any clip. So let's say I would like to just copy to this clip, copy my grading from this still to this clip. I would go ahead and apply grade. I want to have basically sort of matched the look, sort of. This is like a huge bump in productivity. So I guess I would have to grab this, put it over here, and readjust my vignette look. And I would be basically done, at least for that cut. And I would have matched both shots pretty easily, pretty nicely. This one is a little darker than this one, especially around here, so I would need to go ahead and push this back a little bit more. And since the background is a little bit too dark now. Yeah, I would just delete this thing completely because I don't need it. Yep, that looks fine. So, and I could go ahead and just reapply that to all of my clips, just for the sake of matching my clips. And I guess you get the point of it. So the point of it is time is money, and we don't have much time. So you have to find your workflow to get things done consistently, professionally, and fast as fuck. Because time is money, as we all know. I guess this rounds up my review, ramble, whatever you want to call it, of IPP2. So this is sort of my basic color correction all along without any fancy, all right, I want this red to be green, whatever, for example. This is just some basic color correction, and in regards to the Rec 709, no, in regard to the IPP2 workflow. Again, this video is just me rambling and talking and doing stuff and just talking over it. This is not a review, this is not a fancy schmancy essay. This is just me having a little bit of talk about things, or like the way I work, the way I do things. And I could see myself doing that a little bit more often if I have the time, if I get the time. And I see you in the next one.